Hello, you're listening to Mike Madden on the Art Show podcast. Here you will find interviews with authors, musicians, artists and anyone else in and around the arts. Some of the interviews are taken direct from the Art Show on Expat Radio, with one or two specials in between. In this episode I talked to Melbourne author Sandy Barker about her latest novel, One Summer in Santorini. It was first broadcast on Expat Radio on the 24th of October 2019. Due to licensing restrictions, we were unable to play the songs from the original broadcast. Hello, this is Mike Madden on Expat Radio. You're listening to The Art Show. Don't forget to visit our website, expatradio.uk. And this evening, I'm delighted to announce, all the way from the other side of the world, we have Sandy Barker from Melbourne. Good evening, Sandy.
Oh, good evening. How are you, Mike?
I'm all right. It's great to be speaking and sort of 26,000 miles away.
It is. It's literally the opposite side of the world.
Yeah. Now, over here, it is very cold at the moment. So what's it like over there?
Well, you're heading into summer and we're heading into winter, but we've actually got nicer weather than you at the moment.
Isn't that just the way it is?
I think so, yes. I spent a few years living in the UK, so I know that the UK winter is usually a really nice day sometime in the middle of July.
Yes.
The summer,
yes.
I mean, yeah.
Sometimes half a day, but...
Yeah, half a day, exactly.
Now, we're here to talk about your new novel with Avon Books, and it's called One Summer in Santorini, and it's out today. So... Just tell our listeners a little bit about One Summer in Santorini.
Well, it's obviously starts in Santorini. It's about a woman in her 30s who's from Sydney, and she's had a terrible breakup with a terrible man, and she's decided she's going to get back to her one true love, which is travel, and she takes herself off to Greece. And before she's about to leave on this trip, everyone keeps saying to her, oh, you might meet someone. Oh, you're going away, you might meet someone. And it's the last thing that she wants to hear. And then, of course, when she gets to Santorini, she kind of falling back in love with life again and eating wonderful Greek food. And she actually meets not one someone, she meets two someones. So it's a bit of a love triangle, and it's a romp. It's romantic and funny and warm, and it's perfect holiday read.
Excellent. Now you're in Melbourne, but this is actually being launched in the UK. So
it is, yeah.
When you signed with Avon, was that an unusual thing? Because most of our Avon authors are based in the UK, but obviously you're the other side of the world.
Well, they are. And I came across Avon last year because in 2018, my partner and I had packed up everything and left our full-time jobs and went on sabbatical. And we lived in Bali, then we lived in the US, and then we moved to the UK. And I really got immersed in the literary scene there. I was writing, and I got involved in a Twitter chat called UK Rom Chat, it's super fun. I still try to participate as much as I can, even though it's 5 o'clock in the morning here now. But that's when I discovered some of the writers who published with Avon. And Avon, I started to investigate them as publishers, and I thought this would be a fantastic home for my little book. So I did query them, and it all worked out very, very well, actually. It was a few months until I heard back from them. It was very, very English, the email, because it was full of apologies of how long they'd taken to get back to me. But I forgave them instantly when the gist of the email was, we loved your book and we want to publish it. So yes, it is, it is a UK-based publisher. And as you said, I'm living across the world in Melbourne, but I have ties to the UK. My dad's English. I've got a British passport. I'm a UK citizen, and my sister, my brother-in-law, and my nephew live there. So it really does have a lovely place in my heart. And the book starts actually in London, and then the sequel has a whole section set in London. So, yeah, lots of ties to the UK. But you're right, most of their authors are British.
So how does it seem to you for launch day in terms of like parties and that kind of thing?
Actually, I think my partner might be tired of celebrating because we've celebrated every little milestone. We celebrated getting the publication, and then I signed up with the Kate Nash Literary Agency. We celebrated that, celebrated getting the cover, celebrated handing back the edits. So we've had all of these wonderful milestones, and we certainly will have, we'll be cracking another bottle of champagne on launch day for sure. And, just celebrating with friends across the world. I've made a lot of author friends through the writing community, and everybody's been so supportive. So I think there'll be a few glasses raised on that day, and it's a Monday as well. So I've even told all my colleagues I think maybe it might be a good reason to bust out some champagne at work.
Now, this is your debut novel with Avon, but it's not your debut novel overall because you've had success previously with an agent but didn't quite find a publisher, so you went independent.
I did, yeah.
And built up your reputation that way. So just tell us a little bit about that journey.
Sure. So I had been writing this sort of massive missive for years and years and years. And when I decided to put it in front of an agent, he was a fabulous man. He was just gorgeous, and he gave me great feedback. He said, look, I think you're a wonderful writer, but you're not Leanne Moriarty. This is not your first book. This is like your fifth book or maybe your eighth book. Go away and write a single narrative, just a simple story. And so I sort of delved into my own personal life there, and I based the story, my first book, which is One Summer in Santorini, I based it on my true life love story because when I traveled to Santorini, I did meet the love of my life. My story diverges from the love story in the book at that point because, of course, I wasn't involved in love triangle. Anyway, I took the book back to him about a year and a half later. That's how long it took me to write while I was working full time. And he loved it. So he shopped it around, and we didn't have any nibbles, which was really, I'm not going to say it was disappointing. It was absolutely devastating because he was so excited and enthusiastic about the book. So I stuck it in a drawer. And on reflection, I think that really I didn't have the tone of my pitches quite right. I wasn't selling it enough. I wasn't really demonstrating what a fun read it was when I was, sending out these emails and what have you. Anyway, so my partner and I decided to go back to Greece, do another sailing trip. And when I got back from that trip, I was really, really inspired to get the book back out. And at that stage, there were a lot more people publishing independently because for a very long time, publishing independently meant that you had to invest lots of money in print and pay to have your books printed. But of course, with the possibility of putting out an ebook, it seemed to be more and more of an option. So I had another thorough pass at the book. I have colleagues who are editors, so I gave it to one of them who gave it a thorough edit and had cover art done and published the book at the end of 2017. And then while we were on sabbatical, I actually wrote books 2 and 3, and I was just about to self-publish the third book when I got the publication deal with Avon. So that book's not actually been out in the world, but my first 2 books have been. Of course, they came back home. We had to pull them off the market for the launch with Avon, and what was previously You Might Meet Someone, it's had another edit working with the publishers at Avon, and I'm just so happy with it now. Like it was really wonderful to be able to go back to my debut novel from 18 months ago and kind of look at it with fresh eyes. And I'm a better writer now, and just kind of get stuck into it again and make it just perfect. Like, I'm so happy with it, and Avon is too. So you're right. It is my debut. It's still my debut. It's still the first book I ever wrote, but I have a couple others under my belt as well.
That's a very interesting statement you made there about you're a better writer now, because I know you took a year out to go and travel and live overseas, and I think it was on your website I read that it was the year that made you an author.
Yeah.
And you've done a lot of travel writing as well. So what was the difference with that year that you suddenly thought, yeah, I'm going to do this?
Well, I mean, my partner I'm just so grateful to him, because in 2017, he said, let's take a year of our retirement and have it now. Let's do this. And so we were very brave. We left our full-time jobs. We stuck things in storage, as I said, and we just left with a suitcase and our stack of rectangles, I call it. So we had the laptop, the iPad, the Kindle, and the phone, and that's it. So we just traveled with our electronics, and we lived in these places around the world, and we met wonderful people, which was extremely inspiring. But to have the luxury of that time to really sit down and write, it just, once I had the initial idea, the words just poured out of me. And as I said, I'm so grateful to him for just kind of giving us that nudge, mostly me, the nudge, and to have the luxury of that time. And we were doing contract work as well to fund the year. But I think I just had those stories in me. I just wanted to get them out. And when we got back to Australia, we were house hunting and job hunting and all the things you do when you're reestablishing, a normal life. And I'm putting that in inverted commas that you can't see. But the story for book 4 was just bursting to come out. And once I landed a job, I had a month before I started, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get as far into this book as I possibly can. So really, the luxury of time, I think, was the biggest contributor to getting those books written. And now that I'm working full time, I'm super fortunate that I literally work across the street from where I live. So my commute is very small, and it gives me an extra, hour a day that I can just dedicate to writing. So I'm continuing to write while I work.
Right. And when you went overseas, did you have a plan as to where you were going to go? Was that all mapped out, or was it just wherever I lay my hat and that kind of
We
thing?
did have a plan. We started with Bali, and we lived in a co-living space there where we met the most incredible people. So we were there for 2 months, which is essentially the most you can stay in Bali without having to leave the country to renew your visa. And we lived at this co-living space. So we had our own room, but we shared the kitchen and the workspace and the pool, and we met these incredible people. And we knew that after that we would go to the States. My partner's American, so we were going to stay with family and friends there. And then we knew we were going to the UK, which is where, as I said, my sister is. So we had those pieces mapped out, and then we ended the year in Portugal, which it was so fun and so exciting and interesting. But that was the trickiest part of the year, because even after 2 months, our Portuguese was still atrocious. It was very tricky sometimes to get what we wanted. But we did have a tentative plan. And then what we would do is, once we were settled somewhere, we would plan little side trips. And when we were in the UK, finally got up to Scotland and over to Wales and Ireland. And I'm so excited because I added 3 new countries to my list. We had a basic plan, and then we just kind of played it by ear within those time frames.
Right. Well, you talk about your partner very warmly. He's obviously one of your heroes, and we're going to go to a break now with David Bowie and Heroes.
Expat Digital Radio, online 24/7.
Hello, this is Mike Madden on the Arts Show on Expat Radio, and tonight my special guest is Sandy Barker, all the way from Melbourne. Welcome back, Sandy.
Hi there. That's a fantastic choice of music, I have to say. I'm a huge Bowie fan.
Well, we don't get to play him very often, but I just thought that link worked quite well. So, so there you go. Now, before the break, we were talking about One Summer in Santorini and your writing journey to get to Avon. But you have been a travel writer for is it more than 10 years now?
Mm-hmm.
And I've read quite a lot of your blog posts. So what was your original intention with travel writing?
Well, I started the blog in 2008, and I have to say it was purely selfish motives because I would come back from trips and send out newsy emails to my family and friends of these are all the things that I did. And then I'd try to send them some photographs, but of course, at the time email wasn't as robust as it is now, so I'd have to send them in batches. Here's 20 photographs in 10 batches. It got to be quite ridiculous and excruciating. So I decided I will put it all in one place and then you can come to me. So that's really how the blog started. But I love to travel. I have kind of always had the travel bug. My parents were both military children, so they moved around a lot, and they kind of instilled that sense of wonder and adventure in us very young. My first international trip was when I was 7, and I was hooked. I thought, this is fantastic. You can go to different places and see different people and do all of these adventures. And, we did a road trip in the States for 6 weeks when I was 7 and turning 8, and I still remember so much of that. So I just kind of started the blog as, hey, this is what I did on my recent trip for family and friends. But then I really started to delve into what are some of the exciting differences about the places that I've been to. What's the experience? What does it feel to sit in the humidity in Bali and smell the frangipani? What does that feel like? So I really, in a lot of my posts, try to evoke a sense of place, maybe to inspire other people to go, but mostly just as a word-driven snapshot of what it was like for me to be there. It's kind of my own travel journal, I suppose. And it certainly has helped in my writing, and I gravitated towards these travel romances. All 4 books are set in different locations, people traveling, and really exploring that kind of fish out of water feeling and experiencing the wonder of those places again through different eyes, through the characters' eyes. So yeah, the travel writing, I'm a little remiss. I haven't done as much as I was doing before with the fiction writing, but very often I'm inspired to just put fingers to keyboards and document a place that we've been or something special about Bali or Portugal or UK, the US. So yeah, I'm very fortunate to have been to quite a few places, and I've got a long list of places I still want to go to.
So with the travel writing, I mean, these days, as you say, it was very, very different back in 2008. But these days, if somebody's going to go somewhere, they inevitably turn to the internet to do at least some research, and it's usually TripAdvisor reviews, to be honest. Yeah. So do you cast a critical eye over the places you've been and sort of discuss things like the problems getting there, problems you might encounter there, rather than just paint a rosy picture of everywhere?
Absolutely. I mean, I've got some really practical posts. One post for Bali is what to bring and what to buy here, because we didn't pack right for Bali. We packed all the wrong things. We packed all the things that we could buy there cheaply, and then we didn't pack things that you couldn't get there. So, sometimes it's the practical things. And I've had some fantastic whinges on my blog about, just the difficulty of getting things done. I mean, there are countries that you just should never lose your passport in. I've had so many travel disasters, which I kind of borrowed from my own travel disasters for Sarah in One Summer in Santorini. She says at one point, I'm starting to wonder what I did to piss off the travel gods in a previous life. I feel like that sometimes because it's, travel. I don't like to actually travel. There's a secret. I like to be in different places. I don't necessarily like to get to those places. So once in a while I will. But I also do contribute a lot to TripAdvisor, and I put put reviews online, I put them on Google, and I'm a big believer in the wisdom of the crowd. If a lot of people think a place is fantastic, it probably is going to be fantastic. And I've certainly given those 1-star reviews because I don't want other people to waste their time and money on an experience which is sorely lacking. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's not all roses. It's when you travel, but it certainly can really just give you a very fresh perspective. And us coming back to Australia after that year away, what's really interesting is we haven't got any travel booked. We're both kind of homebodies. we've lived out of a suitcase for so long that the small pleasures of being able to put your clothes in a drawer, these things are still wonderous to us. We're like, oh, it's so nice to have our things around us and to have a home to come back to where, if I need a paperclip, I know where that is. I have a paperclip, just little things, really little things. So I think travel has that fantastic sort of transformative effect. It can make you just really appreciate home, really appreciate the fortune that you have, but also just to see things through a different lens. I think it's wondrous. I'm not explaining it very well. I don't think.
No, it's absolutely fine. And one of the other things that, of course, has changed since 10 years ago is the introduction of things like Airbnb. So you can almost find yourself a home.
Absolutely. I mean, we did that in Portugal, actually. The place that we stayed at, it was an apartment, and it was furnished, and that was through Airbnb. I mean, we've had fantastic experiences. We stayed at an Airbnb in Napa where the guy was a chef, and he said, "Oh, I'm having some friends over for dinner. You're welcome to join us." And we had this stunning dinner in the Napa Valley, and all of his friends happened to be winemakers, so they brought all their wine. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen when you travel, and there's so many more opportunities now because, when I first started traveling, sometimes you had to send a letter saying, "Oh, I'd like to stay at your accommodation, for these days in this month," and then you'd wait for the letter to come back. "Oh, that's really good," and then you'd send them a check. So
things have changed a bit.
Exactly. You can instant book on Airbnb. It's fantastic. But I would say that 19 out of our 20 experiences with something like Airbnb are fantastic. And then there's always the one you think, okay, well, that was an interesting experience. That's going to make a good story. I might write that into a novel somewhere, but certainly it makes it a heck of a lot easier. And it's also, I found that travel prices have come down a lot, even just in the last 10 years. Just to be able to go to, get on a plane to the US for a lot less than it was to go one way, 10 years ago. So I think that, for people who prioritize travel, there's so many different ways to make it happen.
Yes, I agree, definitely. So there's a fantastic story on your site about the day you met a financial advisor and said that you never really have a plan to retire, as you'd always be writing. And we've spoken about your books and your travel writing, but where did the passion for the written word actually come from deep down?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think my parents they always read to us, and I was reading before I got to school. I loved books and words, and I was very excited because every week when we do the grocery shopping, I get one of those little golden books, and I just had this whole library of books, and I read voraciously, and as soon as I could write, I was off. I was like always finishing my work quickly so I could write a story, and I still have some of my old notebooks from primary school, and it's really quite sweet. I was a terrible writer, but I was very enthusiastic, and I wrote all through high school, and I actually studied literature, English literature, and theatre arts at university, and for a long time, I wanted to be an actor. I was going to, I had an agent and I was getting small gigs, and that was the thing that was just made my heart sing was acting. And then when I moved across the country from Western Australia to Sydney and moved in with a group of actors, all my friends from university, all, trying to get acting work, I realized that the profession probably wasn't for me. And that's when I picked up the pen again. And I thought, no, it's the writing. I really love the writing. And as I said, I've been working on that first novel, the one that never saw the light of day, the one that the agent said, you're not Leanne Moriarty, you need to put this book away. I worked on that for 10 years. It was it was an autobiography, and then it became this multi-narrative time, over a set of periods of time, blah, blah, blah. So I was constantly writing. And then I loved the blog because that gave me an opportunity not just to do travel writing, which 90% of the blog is, but I got to write I wrote essays. I wrote, I was living in America when Obama was elected the first time. I wrote about that. So I just have always loved writing, and now I work for a publishing house, and I work in editing and publishing. So, yeah, it's been my passion for a very long time, and it's thrilling to me to think about being published with Avon Books, them being an imprint of HarperCollins. It is literally a dream come true. And, I'm hoping in the next couple of years that this will become the full-time gig. And I won't stop writing until I stop living, I think. And I'm not going to ever retire. I don't think that, it'll be me. I'll be like Barbara Cartland. You remember her with, I think she was about 100 years old, all dressed in pink, surrounded by her little dogs. That will be me, except it'll be cats.
Right. Well, I mean, your website is a fantastic resource, and there's a couple of stories on there that I won't give away, but I particularly like the story about the flight where you were sat between a married couple. That must, yeah. I can't imagine what that was like, but there's also your New Year absolutions as opposed to resolutions, which is a fantastic idea.
Thank you. You may borrow that. Yes. Every year I absolve myself of particular things, all the things that I think I should be doing, or all the things that people tell me I should be doing. So the shoulds, those things that you're like, yeah. Gosh, I just really don't want to, and I have a lot of fun coming up with those, and I genuinely absolve myself from them. I don't go near them again. It's fabulous. I can highly recommend it. I actually tweeted that out to Kathy Lett, and she replied that she was stealing it. So it's, a popular concept. I think it should take off. Maybe I need to write that into a book and it can take off even more.
It's a great idea. Well, sadly, we're running out of time now. We could talk all night about this, but let's let people in on the secret of where they can find out about Sandy Barker and her writing.
Right. So it's a very easy website to remember. It's sandybarker.com. And I'm also on Twitter. My handle is Sandy Barker. And if you go on the Avon Books website, you can find out more about me and follow the links, because my book is now on pre-order.
That's absolutely wonderful. And hopefully you'll come back on and tell us about your next launch or maybe your next travel adventure.
Oh, I'd love that, Mike. Thank you so much.
It's been great talking to Sandy Barker tonight. And we're going to play out with a song that is all about travelling around. It's Wherever I Lay My Hat from Paul Young. You've been listening to the Arts Show podcast with Mike Madden. Come back soon for more artists, authors, musicians and anyone else connected with the arts. We're going to play out with Mike Sanchez and I Don't Stand a Chance.
Baby, you hiding something that you don't want me to know, because I'm getting a vibe from way down the side, like you're just about ready to go. And you can't tell me where you stayed last night, you just can't cope with treating me right. I'm on the road to heartbreak, now's the time to tell me so, because I'm getting a chill like I'm gonna be ill. I know you don't want me no more, I won't be satisfied with your little white lies. Girl, I've only just begun to realize I don't stand a chance I don't stand a chance. You don't wanna know and I can't make you dance. Well, I said goodbye. Find yourself another guy. I wish you were mine, but I'm losing my mind. I don't stand a chance. Now's the time to tell me so, because I'm getting a chill like I'm gonna be here. I know you don't want me no more. I won't be satisfied with your little white lies. Girl, I've only just begun to realize I don't stand a chance. No, I don't stand a chance. You don't wanna know and I can't make you dance. Well, I'll say goodbye. Find yourself another guy. I wish you were mine, but I'm losing my mind. I don't stand a chance.